Thanks for my lunch.
Trish, you said what they say to you? I'm officially auntie.
Oh, shit.
I cannot believe this. Okay, I cannot believe this. She loved God. She focused on getting money and taking care of her family. Lord Jesus Christ, she was an amazing person.
I'm leaving early. I need to get out of here. No, this scared me too bad. It just traumatized me too much. No.
On the morning of August 22, 2025, a routine workday at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit turned into a nightmare. 40-year-old Latricia Green, a longtime employee, walked into the basement office where she had worked for 2 decades, not knowing it would be the last time. Moments later, her ex-husband, Mario Green, entered the hospital. Despite past protection orders, bans, and warnings, he managed to make his way to her workplace. What happened next was sudden and irreversible. By the time police arrived, Latricia was gone, and the man once closest to her was already on the run. What made this case even more shocking wasn't just the setting, a hospital, a place of healing and safety, but the history behind it. This wasn't the story of strangers colliding by chance. It was the story of a woman who had pleaded for protection, a woman who cried out for help in the months leading up to her death, and a system that left her exposed. But to understand the weight of this tragedy, we need to know who she really was: the daughter, the co-worker, the friend, and the woman at the heart of it all. This is the life and death of Latricia Green Brown. Latricia was born in 1985, and by the time she reached her 40th birthday in March 2025, friends described her as a strong, kind-hearted woman who worked tirelessly to care for others. She had been a loyal employee at Henry Ford Hospital for over 20 years, a place her family thought was safe, stable, and almost a second home. To her co-workers, Latricia was magnificent, a woman who always wore a smile, checked in on others, and treated patients and staff with the same kindness.
She never did nothing to nobody. She was a nice, generous person.
She was magnificent. She was more than a friend. She was a mother. She was a wife. She did her job.
Though she never had her own children, relatives say she was a mother figure to younger family members and poured her love into the people around her. But behind that caring presence, Latricia was living in the shadow of a toxic relationship. Latricia met Mario Green when she was in her mid-20s. Despite a 13-year age gap, the two became inseparable, and by 2012, they were married. At first, it seemed like a fresh start for Latricia. She had a husband, a home, and the promise of a new chapter. But by 2018, the marriage started to crack. The marriage collapsed under the weight of what friends later described as years of verbal abuse, intimidation, and control. Mario himself filed for divorce, but the separation didn't bring peace. Instead, it seemed to fuel his anger. Even after the divorce, the pair continued to live together in Detroit, a complicated and painful arrangement that left Latricia constantly on edge. Her friends noticed the bruises, heard the late-night cries, and listened to her fears. One close confidant later recalled that Latricia would call her crying and saying she was tired, she just wanted to be free. But freedom never came. By early 2025, things spiraled further. Just after her 40th birthday in March, Latricia and Mario got into an argument that ended with him kicking her out of their shared home. For weeks, she had nowhere to go. She slept in her car, often parked in the lot of Henry Ford Hospital, the very place she had dedicated her professional life to. Later that summer, she finally managed to secure a small apartment, renting it in a friend's name for protection. She tried to rebuild, cooking her first meal in the new space, waiting on furniture deliveries, telling her family she wanted to start fresh, but she never truly felt safe. Mario knew her habits, her workplace, and her routine. Even outside of their marriage, he still cast a long shadow over her life. Her fears weren't unfounded. Court filings show that she made 2 desperate attempts to secure a protection order against Mario. The first, in June 2025, was denied because the judge said she hadn't provided enough detail. But Latricia didn't give up. On July 2025, she filed again, this time including explicit details of harassment, stalking, and even incidents where Mario had vandalized her belongings. The judge granted the order. But something heartbreaking. The order was never served. In Michigan, the responsibility for serving a restraining order can fall back on the victim, even requiring fees for mileage and paperwork. For reasons that remain unclear, whether it was fear, hesitation, or the sheer burden of navigating the system, Mario was never formally notified of the order. Without that enforcement, Latricia remained vulnerable. In her petition, Latricia had written chilling words that I have to constantly look over my shoulder to make sure this man is not following me. I am asking for help before this goes too far. Less than 5 weeks later, her warning came true. On August 22, 2025, Mario Green walked into Henry Ford Hospital just before 10 a.m. Despite being banned from the premises for prior harassment, he managed to slip into the basement, reportedly under the guise of dropping off some of Latricia's personal belongings. There, in the workplace she had known for 2 decades, Mario confronted Latricia. Moments later, in a space meant for healing, he pulled out a gun and fired. For staff and patients nearby, the sound was shocking, almost surreal. One visitor recalled that everybody was screaming, trying to figure out what was going on. It was just a regular morning, and then, suddenly, chaos. Security footage later confirmed Mario leaving the hospital at 9:55 a.m., dressed in black, wearing a gold chain, and heading toward his Dodge Charger parked outside. Behind him, Latricia lay mortally wounded. Her life ended in the very building she had dedicated 20 years of service to. News of her death spread rapidly, shaking both the hospital community and the wider city of Detroit. For co-workers, it wasn't just the shock of violence inside their workplace, it was the heartbreak of losing someone they considered family.
It was a terrifying experience for patients and employees who did not know what was happening as that chaos unfolded right around them.
And those who knew and loved Latricia Green are shaken up and devastated. Our team coverage continuing now with 7 News Detroit reporter Ruta Alcinaida, who spoke to the workers who hunkered down in the hospital and who say they will miss their dear friend.
Employees here tell me they go into work at the hospital not exactly sure what they'll expect, but this was something they could have not even imagined. It's ringing out, people praying, running, hiding for their lives, hoping no one else loses theirs.
I cannot believe this. Okay, I cannot believe this.
It was horrible. It was the most horrible feeling, because when you're in a room and they tell you can't leave, and it's somebody you just don't know. And your life just started flashing, in front of your eyes.
To say the employees here at Henry Ford Hospital just off West Grand Boulevard were shaken up after Friday's deadly would be an understatement. Was your shift already over, or are you leaving early?
I'm leaving early. I need to get out of here. No, this scared me too bad. It just traumatized me too much. No.
53-year-old Mario Green allegedly shot and killed his ex-wife in the basement of the hospital before taking off. Those that knew and worked side by side with Latricia in the laundry area of the hospital are absolutely devastated by the news. Devin Wilford worked with Latricia, who she says taught her everything she knows.
She loved God. She focused on getting money and taking care of her family. Lord Jesus Christ, she was an amazing person.
One colleague broke down in tears upon hearing the news. She talked about how Latricia was always there for her, even when she was going through her own struggles. Latricia didn't deserve this. Latricia's family was left devastated, many of them publicly demanding answers about why the system hadn't done more. Her cousin wrote online that Latricia never bothered a soul. She worked, she smiled, she loved her family, and she asked for help. But nobody stopped Mario. Within minutes of the first 911 calls, Henry Ford Hospital was transformed from a place of healing into the center of a citywide emergency. Witnesses inside the building described the chaos vividly. Alarms blaring, staff rushing patients into secured rooms, and law enforcement pouring through every entrance. For those inside, it was a surreal experience. A normal Friday morning had turned into something they had only seen in movies. Detroit police were on scene almost instantly, joined by the hospital's own internal security team. Officers armed with long rifles swept through hallways, shouting commands, clearing floors, and evacuating vulnerable patients from the basement. Doctors and nurses locked doors, pushed patients' beds into corners, and whispered reassurances while trying to mask their own fear. Authorities quickly realized that the gunman had already fled, but they treated the situation as an active shooter event until every floor was confirmed secure.
Murdered at work. A manhunt is underway in Detroit after a man walked into his ex-wife's job and opened fire, taking her life. Latricia Green Brown was shot in the basement of Henry Ford Hospital about 10 this morning.
And minutes after that, police identified her ex-husband, Mario Green, as the suspect in that case. Security cameras caught him leaving the hospital just minutes after that. Jay Scott Smith has been following the very latest developments in this case all day long. Jay, we now know Latricia had a valid personal protection order against Green.
Yes, indeed, she did. Good evening, everybody. And honestly, this was just a bad scene all the way around, as on this Friday night, as mentioned, one woman is. There are a lot of questions that need answering, and police are trying to get a dangerous man off the streets.
He produced a gun, handgun, and fired multiple shots. His ex-wife.
Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison laid out what happened this morning at Henry Ford Hospital around 10:15 a.m. Bettison named this man, 53-year-old Mario Green of Bloomfield Hills, first as a person of interest, but now he's the prime suspect in the shocking of Latricia Green Brown. It set off a chaotic scene on West Grand Boulevard and a citywide manhunt.
We're actively looking for him. He is presumed to be armed and dangerous.
Surveillance cameras caught Green entering the hospital. From there, police say he went into the basement where Brown worked and shot her multiple times after an argument. After Brown was killed, he hopped in a white 2011 Dodge Charger and took off, headed north on the Lodge Freeway. The car was eventually found abandoned near Losser on the city's west side around 2 p.m., but Green remains on the loose. He's 6 feet tall and was last seen wearing all black and a gold chain. Mario Green also has a violent past, having served 6 years in state prison following a 2006 arson conviction. He's also served 4 years on probation for aggravated stalking, and most recently in June, he just finished a 3-year probation stint for failing to pay child support. Brown, meanwhile, had sought an order of protection against Mario Green, but he had yet to be served.
Now, there have been questions about how he was able to get into the hospital. We have gotten a statement from Henry Ford Hospital saying, quote, "We have a comprehensive security plan in place that includes metal detectors at the emergency department and an on-site police force. We consistently strive to ensure our facilities are safe and our processes and procedures prioritize security. An internal investigation into this tragic incident is underway." Now, this manhunt for Mario Green continues. If you happen to see him, you are not to approach him. He's considered armed and dangerous. If you see Mario Green, make sure you contact the Detroit Police Department.
Families in waiting rooms were forced to shelter in place, while visitors were told to stay away from windows. For hours, the hospital remained on lockdown, its entrances guarded by armed police as yellow tape sealed off the basement corridor where Latricia had worked faithfully for 2 decades. The investigation unfolded rapidly. Detectives gathered statements from stunned employees who had witnessed the confrontation. Many recalled that the suspect had walked in calmly, under the guise of dropping off belongings, only to escalate into a deadly argument. Security cameras stationed throughout the hospital provided detectives with a chillingly clear picture. Mario Green entering through the main lobby, riding the elevator down to the basement, and leaving less than 15 minutes later, dressed in all black with a gold chain around his neck. Within hours, police made a public decision. They released his in-depth description to the public. At a press briefing, Chief Todd Bettison did not mince words. He produced a handgun and fired multiple shots, killing his ex-wife. We are actively looking for him. He is presumed to be armed and dangerous.
Update to the community. We're at Henry Ford Hospital at approximately 9:55 a.m. Via video assets, we did observe a subject, our person of interest, leaving the facility. A Mr. Mario Green, date of birth 7/22/1960. He's 65 years old. He got into a verbal altercation with what I'm being told his ex-wife in the basement area of Henry Ford Hospital. He produced a gun, handgun, and fired multiple shots. His ex-wife. She's a black female, approximately 40 years of age. He has fled. Is no longer an active situation at the hospital, even though it is an active crime scene. He left the front door of the hospital, got into a white Dodge Charger. We're actively looking for him. He is presumed to be armed and dangerous. I'm asking the public if they see him, and we'll release the picture shortly as to how he looks, exactly who he is, and I can tell you that he has an address in Bloomfield Hills. We expect to have him in custody very, very shortly, but we're asking for the community's help and that the danger situation posed here is over. We do have our police assets, my SWAT team, my other metropolitan officers here, as well as federal assets about to search the hospital and just ensure.
The city braced itself for what was now a full-scale manhunt. Then, there was a golden break in the case. Mario's white 2011 Dodge Charger became the first critical lead. Surveillance cameras captured him driving northbound on the Lodge Freeway immediately after leaving the hospital. By mid-afternoon, officers discovered the car abandoned on Detroit's west side, near Lasser Road and 8 Mile. Its presence there raised even more questions. Had someone helped him escape, or was he hiding close by? SWAT teams and tactical units joined the search, setting up checkpoints and canvassing neighborhoods. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning alleys and backyards. Residents in the area reported the unnerving sight of officers with machine guns surrounding their blocks. One neighbor later said that they looked out my window and the whole street was lit up with flashing lights. They feared for their life and wondered whether Mario would have forced them inside at gunpoint. This panic ran through the neighborhood.
Hours after that deadly shooting at Henry Ford Hospital, the suspect's Dodge Charger was found abandoned in a northwest Detroit neighborhood near Lasser, just south of 8 Mile.
7 News Detroit reporter Brett Cast continuing our team coverage. And Brett, you've been talking with neighbors. What else are they telling you?
Well, Simon, we're trying to figure out exactly when this car showed up here at Trojan and Lasser. It was just parked across the street. It's obviously been towed and it's gone now, but it was on the east side of Lasser on Trojan on the south side of the road there. That's where the car was found. I talked to a neighbor who had some surveillance video. It only showed just a corner of the front part of the car that actually got into the frame of the video. Between 11 and 11:20, you see the video and the car is no longer there. There's no video of the car pulling up, but then you scroll forward to about 11:48 and suddenly you do see the car in the frame there. So we know it showed up around that time, but again, we're still trying to figure out exactly how the car was found. We don't know if it was police that found a car or a neighbor that had reported it, but many neighbors were shocked when that police presence obviously showed up in search of Mario, just to see the entire presence and knowing that his car made it here about 20 minutes away from the hospital.
The police presence was so overwhelming until, it was just like, my goodness, what's going on? So I'm thinking it was an active shooting in this area, but apparently they were able to track him from the hospital. This was as far as he got.
And again, this is the last known location that we are aware of where Mario was last seen, or at least his car was last seen. Again, it was towed away from the scene here not very long ago, and the search is very much still on.
Investigators also retraced Green's digital footprint. Detectives secured his phone records, examined his recent calls, and learned from interviews that he may have received advice from an associate on how to dispose of his cell phone to avoid being tracked. That associate, later identified as 54-year-old Anthony Barnett, would soon face charges of his own for allegedly helping Mario in the critical hours after the shooting.
A late arraignment for not one, but two men linked to last Friday's deadly shooting at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. Mario Green on your left is charged with first-degree premeditated murder. He's accused of walking into the basement of the hospital and shooting his ex-wife, Latricia Green Brown, before driving away in his white Dodge Charger. The second man you see on your screen on the right is Anthony Barnett. He's accused of helping Mario Green get away from the scene. And he's charged with accessory after the fact and lying to a police officer. The manhunt for Mario Green lasted nearly 17 hours. You saw that here on Local 4. Green was arrested early Saturday morning on Detroit's east side. And this is truly tragic. Latricia Green Brown had sought a personal protection order against Mario Green, but we've now learned that order had not been served yet.
Meanwhile, the pressure on law enforcement was immense. This was not just any crime scene. It had taken place inside one of Detroit's largest hospitals, a facility people trusted with their lives. Questions swirled. How had a man previously banned from the hospital grounds managed to walk in unchallenged? How did he slip past security measures that supposedly included metal detectors and badge checks? And above all, why wasn't the personal protection order Latricia had been granted just a month earlier ever served to him? By nightfall on August 22nd, the hospital reopened portions of its campus, but the sense of safety was shattered. Officers remained stationed outside while crime scene investigators photographed every inch of the basement. Colleagues of Latricia, still in disbelief, were escorted to a counseling center set up inside the hospital to process the trauma of the day. Meanwhile, the manhunt pressed on. Detectives pieced together sightings and tips, following leads across Detroit. The break came just after 3 a.m. on August 23rd. Acting on intelligence, officers converged on the city's east side near East Warren Avenue and LeMay Street. There, after nearly 18 hours on the run, the cops got their biggest break. They located Mario hiding in a residence. The arrest was tactical and swift. Police surrounded the property under the cover of night, cutting off escape routes. Neighbors awoke to the thunderous commands of officers ordering Green to surrender. He was taken into custody without incident, but the relief was mixed with grief. As Chief Bedison later said that the officers worked tirelessly to get this monster off the street, but no person deserved what happened to Ms. Latricia Green. He sent prayers go out to her family. Mario was charged almost immediately with first-degree premeditated murder, aggravated stalking, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person, and multiple counts of felony firearm. His alleged accomplice, Anthony Barnett, faced charges of his own for allegedly helping Mario in the critical hours after the shooting. When Mario Green was brought before the 36th District Court, the courtroom was tense. Shackled, dressed in jail-issued clothing, and flanked by attorneys, he stood silently as prosecutors outlined the gravity of the charges. Among them, first-degree premeditated murder, aggravated stalking, discharge of a firearm in a building causing death, being a prohibited person in possession of a firearm, and multiple counts of felony firearm. The prosecutor wasted no time painting a chilling picture: a man who had been warned, banned, and legally restrained from approaching his ex-wife, yet still found a way to end her life in the very place she should have felt safest. The state argued that Green posed not just a danger to the community, but a profound threat to anyone who dared to cross him. He requested he be remanded without bond. His defense attorney countered, attempting to argue for a nominal bond, but the judge was unmoved.
Hi, what's your name, sir? Mario Green. Thank you. This will be case 25059-589, State of Michigan versus Mario Dwayne Green, counsel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. APA Larry King for the people, P78774.
Judge Philip Reid, on behalf of Mario Green, we would waive the formal reading, stand mute. He has been advised of his constitutional rights.
Court will enter not guilty plea on your client's behalf as to bond.
Your Honor, the people request bond in this matter be set at remand. Michigan Court Rule 6.106 permits remand in cases where the defendant is charged with murder. In this case, it's alleged that the defendant entered a hospital full of workers, civilians, and people being treated for medical issues, and in that hospital sought out his ex-wife at her office and fired her. Your Honor, this is a horrific charge. It's first-degree premeditated. He is facing potential life in prison. Based on the nature of the charges, the potential threat to the safety, and the fact that he ran, he hid, he had to be searched out by police over the course of several days with the assistance of several law enforcement agencies. I think he's an unreasonable risk of safety to the community and poses a flight risk. The people are requesting remand. Your Honor, if the court is not inclined to remand the defendant, we would request $1 million cash bond with GPS tether house arrest.
Thank you.
Judge, I did speak with Mr. Green in depth. We are asking the court for some type of nominal bond and anything other than a remand, Your Honor.
But the judge said that the allegations were highly serious and also emphasized the premeditation and the setting. It was a hospital filled with patients and workers. Ultimately, bond was denied, and Mario was ordered held in custody pending trial. Meanwhile, his alleged accomplice, Anthony Barnett, faced his own day in court. Prosecutors alleged that Anthony not only gave Mario advice on how to evade police, but also lied to investigators about his whereabouts. Anthony's defense pushed back, arguing that his involvement was minimal. Still, the charges, accessory after the fact and lying to a police officer, carried weight. He was given a $100,000 bond with GPS monitoring, sparking outrage from Latricia's grieving relatives who insisted that he was just as guilty. For Latricia's family, the legal proceedings were both necessary and agonizing. Each court appearance forced them to relive the horror of August 22nd. Friends and cousins sat in the gallery, some in tears, others staring coldly at the man accused of destroying their loved one's life. One cousin wrote online that no one should send condolences at the funeral on Wednesday if they were only going to stand in court supporting Mario on Thursday. She reminded everyone that Latricia was a sweet soul, not an opportunity for anyone to play both sides. The community, too, was shaken. Henry Ford Hospital, once hailed as one of the safest facilities in Detroit, faced sharp criticism. How had a man banned from the property, a man with a documented history of stalking and abuse, managed to walk inside without raising alarms? The hospital promised an internal review, pledging to tighten security, retrain staff, and scrutinize how they protect employees from domestic threats that spill into the workplace. But for many, the promises felt too little, too late. Latricia's funeral was a heartbreaking reminder of everything lost. Friends described her as radiant, hardworking, and kind. A woman who never bothered anyone, who gave 2 decades of her life to serving others at the hospital. Colleagues wept as they remembered the little things, her smile during morning rounds, the way she checked in on coworkers, the warmth she brought even on stressful days. Family members described her as a woman crying out for help, someone who had turned to the system for protection only to be repeatedly let down. She had no children of her own, but her extended family filled the chapel. They spoke of her strength, her resilience, and the hope she once carried of starting fresh after years of struggle. Her cousin's words captured the mood. She didn't deserve this. She begged for protection, and nobody listened until it was too late. Beyond the grief, there was anger. Anger at the failures of the system. Anger at the delays in serving protection orders. And anger at the reality that a piece of paper could not shield a woman from violence. As the trial looms, questions remain. Could this tragedy have been prevented if the restraining order had been served? Should hospitals have stricter policies to guard employees from known threats? And more broadly, what can communities do to ensure that victims of domestic violence aren't left to navigate their fears alone? These are not easy questions, and as much as we tell these stories, the truth is they keep repeating. Different names, different cities, but the same pattern of pleas for help that come too late. Latricia Gwynne's story is not just about her death. It's about her courage, her years of service, and the calls for help she made that went unanswered. It's about a system that must do better, and about the responsibility we all share in protecting those most at risk. Let us know what you think in the comment section below.